Greetings and welcome to the BlastCast. I am Jairus, and with me as always is my brother-in-arms, Lightning Dragon.
Pew pew ka-chew.
For this show I am trying a different mic setup, so let me know down in the comments below if you feel this is clearer than the standard mic, or if you like the old one better. So let's get into some Star Citizen news. This week we finally got the roadmap updates, and man, was there a lot of stuff in there. And I'll touch on these a little bit. If you haven't gone to RSI's main website and checked it out, I really recommend that you do. The roadmap has been updated to 3.8. This year is going to be huge. We're going to be seeing some great things like ship-to-ship docking, ship-to-station docking, Vanguard and Cutlass variants, the 890 jump, the Hull C, storage and refinery stations, both manned and unmanned. I'm not sure if unmanned means players or organizations can take them over for themselves, but that would be amazing.
I'd like to see station-to-station docking.
Hey, what do you think, you'd be flying stations?
Yeah! Freaking, what is it? Space Engineer style.
Now, of all the updates, 3.8 seems to be the most ambitious of all of them. The patch should include ship-to-ship docking, refineries, unmanned cargo stations, microtech and its 3 moons, the new Babbage landing zone, dynamic missions, mag boots, zero-G push and pull with our hands and feet, using handheld weapons while riding a vehicle, the first iteration of salvage, the Cutlass Blue, the Carrack, the Hull C, and the Prowler. It looks like this year is going to end with a heck of a bang.
That's a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah. Now Aaron Roberts explains the schedule a bit more in the Reverse the Verse segment, which we'll be covering in a few minutes. So before we talk about Reverse the Verse, let's get into Around the Verse.
No!
The first thing they showed off was the work that being done updating the AI to utilize the new flight model. Now, the Connie they showed was basically only trying to broadside. The AI does not seem to be fully utilizing the potential of the ship, because if you have seen or flown a Connie, you know that most of the weaponry would be effectively used pointing towards the enemy. CIG should actually watch how players use the new flight model, and then design the AI to work along the same lines. This would pair up well with their promise that it would be hard to distinguish AI from players.
They could also do a system where it knows how much firepower is in certain cones of fire, so it'll try and keep you in that cone. So a ship that has just as much firepower left or right doesn't matter, as opposed to a ship that has more forward-facing weapons.
Right, see, because the Connie has those 4 guns that's controlled by the pilot right now. Hopefully, eventually it's controlled by someone else, or it's automated gimbals. And you have something like 40-something missiles, all pointed forward as well, and facing forward, both turrets can hit the target. So a large ship like that, which is clearly not going to be dodging a fighter, would probably want to decouple and then rotate right then and there to keep that fighter basically at bay. Now, if there's multiple fighters, that's a more complex issue, but at the very least, that one-on-one fight, that Connie with all that firepower pointed forward would have rained hell down on that Gladius. It almost seemed atmospheric the way that they were flying it in space.
Which the devs do constantly.
It's a little bit of disconnect there, but hopefully they get it nailed down and figure it out.
They're on their way to fixing it, so I kind of forgive them for doing it, but I still groan every time I see them flying or acting like it's a World War II dogfighter, because it's not. It's space. That's fine if you're on a planet that has atmosphere, because if it's just like the moon, right? There's really not an atmosphere on the moon. You don't fly like a plane there.
Now, sounds are being updated to create a more immersive surround sound directional experience. And they gave some examples of that, and basically taking us from one environment to the next and hearing how you can listen to where thrusters are sounding, if it's on the left or the right. And if you have a stereo headset, basically you should be able to hear that difference and help also identify and locate exactly what's happening on your ship at any given time.
You know what I have?
A stereo headset?
Yeah, I have a stereo headset. It's kind of crazy sometimes.
Yeah, I don't think many people buy mono headsets these days. I don't see that being a big seller.
I think it's supposed to be like a 5.1 equivalent headset, right? So I can get like behind me sound, and so when that happens in games, it's like whoa, because it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I have the same thing. Now, the major focus of 2019 is about polishing existing features and bringing them up to a AAA level status. Now, this means smoothing out animations, how the AI works, cover, picking things up and putting things down smoothly, but no pops. Like right now, when you pick up a box or put it down, it does animate, but then that last few inches or feet or whatever, it just teleports right over there. And they're trying to eliminate that completely, so everything has a very smooth movement. The same thing goes with ship entrances and exits. They want to make sure that all the parts that need to move smoothly, the pilot gets in quickly and smoothly, and everything just kind of lines up and looks completely professional and fluid.
I hope that we have fast enter and exit animations as well.
Well, the animations they showed looked a lot faster.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're just like going to your cargo ship or whatever, right? And you lower the ramp, you kind of walking at your own leisure. But if you're trying to get into like a fighter, especially if it's like on a carrier, you're not gonna leisurely climb up the thing, stop, look at your watch. Oh my, it's almost lunchtime. I hope I'm back by the time it's food's ready, and then you get in. And I mean,
No,
it's fine for demonstration purposes, but
yeah, well, they said a while ago that's what they were working on. So it looks like it's getting really close to being where they want it to be.
yeah, I would hope that there'd be like a double tap, like you walk up and get rid of the context sensitive menu because I hate it. But who knows what they'll do? But like a double tap of F means get in fast, as opposed to a single F. Like if you're not in a hurry, you just get in as whatever leads you.
Or you hold shift like run, as you're hitting it, and that doesn't.
Yeah, or that. Some context.
They also showed off some American Sign Language that's being put into the game through motion capture. I really like this idea. It's nice to see that people with hearing issues will be able to communicate, and I hope it puts subtitles underneath it for those of us who don't actually understand what that means. I was talking to someone on our Discord, and they had said that, and I don't know the name of the game, and I do apologize for having forgotten it, but there's one actually where if you speak, it converts it into text, and I wonder if they would approach it that way too.
I only know a couple of the sign language things, just some of the things that get repeated a lot in shows and television.
Yeah. Some are more known than others, but if you have a friend who he can't hear you and you could just basically speak and it would turn it into text for him, that would be great too. So let's talk about Reverse the Verse a little bit. This was a 2-part show. The first part of the show was an interview with Aaron Roberts, always fascinating, and the second part was an interview with developers taking questions from the viewers. So let's start with Aaron Roberts. Part of the discussion was about the roadmap for 2019 and why things are listed as they are. Now, since the focus is currently on Squadron 42, some features in the persistent universe will get pushed back. Now, I'd imagine that once Squadron 42 gets done, there'll be a massive acceleration in the persistent universe. And I agree with this approach due to the fact that Squadron 42 is not only the core pledged item, but it will advertise the PU and bring more players into the game. Now, the game is taking way longer to finish due to the scope and scale. The game that was pitched was massively smaller than the game we have right now. Now, due to needing to build all the underlying tech, which was a large reason for many of these delays, speed in development is wrapping up with each toolset that's created. A few years back, they told us that all levels in Squadron 42 were in a gray box state. Due to them being reworked with the new tech, they decided to rework those levels and bring up their quality standards. Now, Aaron stated that both Chris and himself, they're not willing to release Squadron 42 until they're happy with it, because this actually might be the last game that they work on. And I agree. For a while I've said that this is Chris Roberts' magnum opus, and so I say go for it. Embarrass the haters. Now, as far as the content in the persistent universe for 2019, they're key on new locations, creating more detail on the planets we have, like tunnels and places to visit such as way stations, new flight model. The flight model, they said, is actually something that's a little bit simpler on the side of processing, so it should actually run faster. Female characters, deep character customization, and improved AI that's going to be what you find in Squadron 42. As far as the roadmap goes, what they're going to be doing from now on with the roadmap, at least as far as Aaron was describing it, is they want to say low and aim high. So what we have listed right now, even though it seems ambitious, what they're doing is listing what they believe is the bare minimum that they can get done. And they may add new things onto each particular build as they finish. But for right now, they're just giving us the bare dirt floor. And frankly, if you've ever done sales or anything like that, you know it's always better to promise low and deliver high. You end up with a much happier customer, and I think it's a smart move.
It reminds me a lot of the Subnautica development, where they had their roadmap, not in the same kind of roadmap that Star Citizen does. It was more of a, this is what's done, this is what needs to be doing, and this is what we have planned. And they'd update it so that anyone who was following the game development could go in there and look. And they had a lot of things that you would see that it was being done, but then it got pushed to do later, or all of a sudden it was in the done state, and then it was like in the next version. And that kind of reminds me of them saying that they're gonna promise low and then deliver high, because this allows them to do what they need to do to make the game good or playable, whatever kind of phrase you want to use for that. And then if something else gets done that was maybe not quite ready, they can just toss it in there and say, oh, by the way, this just happened to be done at the right time.
Exactly, it's kind of like a bonus. While they may finish some tech for Squadron 42, it may not show up in the persistent universe until later. The reason for this is that they have to incorporate it into the mechanics of a multiplayer game, and that does involve additional work. Another statement that he made is about the upcoming Evo Kadi build. Now, Aaron stated that Evo Kadi may be opened up earlier for testing the new flight model. So it sounds like, from what I was gathering, they may actually take maybe the current build we have, put the new flight model in it, and have us test it in a more stable environment, like 3.4 plus new flight model. He didn't say that specifically, but I would imagine that's how it would apply. No ETA yet exactly when that will be.
Soon, TM.
There's the ETA. Mr. Roberts talked a bit about server meshing, and it's going to give CIG the ability to put everybody in one instance. Now, dynamically, the servers can control the amount of people that are shown in an area. For example, if there's a bar with 100 people in it, it may take several servers to go ahead and spin up and handle all that data. If you're in that bar, you'll see all those people. But if you move outside of that bar, you'll be transferred to a different server, and the people in the bar no longer matter to you, and you're now underneath the control of a different server. This scaling of servers will allow the game to show exactly what it needs when it needs it, and kind of keep the latency and everything down, I would imagine, quite a bit. Now, once they get the servers to pass data between one another, they'll start working on building the dynamic part of the meshing.
The ability to have this kind of tech should make the game run a whole lot smoother. And as we talked about a little bit earlier, I don't think it was recorded. It was right before we recorded. Did mean that you wouldn't have to worry about waiting for an open server. You know, if your friends are already playing, and then, you know, oftentimes when we do our tests, it's not like, oh, well, I logged in first and no one can join that server. So whoever logged in first and got eager and jumped into play has to log out, and then you form a party, and then you have to go in at once. And it's a little annoying. So doing this, like, maybe I woke up early, I wanted to play because the game was fun and playable, and then Jars wakes up and he's like, oh, you're playing? You can just join, and we're in the same instance because everything's the same. It's all one server, more or less.
Yeah, that will eliminate a lot of headaches. Now, the second part, there were some questions. Not going to go over all of them, but some of the ones here I thought that were worth talking about. Someone asked if there are going to be any natural disasters in Star Citizen lore, and will they happen in the game as a dynamic event. The dev stated that there were some natural disasters on Earth and some other planets, and as far as dynamic goes, there's no firm plans on that yet. I personally had a feeling that Earth would probably have some sort of disaster in its history because it would keep the developers from needing to be pitch perfect about everything on Earth, and it would be way too much to ask them to make a perfect recreation at 1/4 scale. So yeah, I figured there'd be, like, I don't know, maybe we praxised our own moon. I don't know.
Well, think about Las Vegas, right? They blow up hotels all the time there and rebuild them. You know, as buildings get old, they are taken down because they're not safe anymore and rebuilt. So if you're talking about 1,000 years in the future, I don't think we're going to have buildings that are 1,000 years old.
No. And plus you could have asteroid impacts, and you could have wars and all sorts of things, and earthquakes, and all sorts of, you know, there's just lots of things that can come into factor, and it'll change a lot of things. Now, they asked if there's going to be any new civilizations that come into the game. They stated they really can't answer that, and that might be because either they don't know yet, or they do know and they just can't say. Which is the equivalent of, in my opinion, there's probably going to be new civilizations. I mean, that's part of exploration. You're going to be finding these...
boldly going where no one has gone before.
Yeah, they already stated that there are going to be systems that nobody has come across. So, you know, there may be a certain point that we stumble across, you know, the Borg, so to speak, and even the band will go, oh, we need to side with the humans because these guys are kicking our butt. Who knows?
I'd love to see more playable races. I've been watching a bunch of Mass Effect stuff recently, and it really kind of makes me miss that game in some of its glory and obviously some of its flaws. It had a very interesting world, and a lot of the races were very well written and developed. And Star Citizen kind of doesn't have that yet, but I hope we'll get there.
I think you're more likely to see playing other races once expansions come out. You know, the sequels to Squadron 42 and whatnot. I think then you'll be able to start playing some of these other races, make a new character or whatever. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work with pledge ships or whatever, or that's just going to be a character that's on your crew that you can, you know, like you make a bunch of characters and they all have access to your hangars and your ships or whatever. I don't know, but I would imagine sometime down the road that's going to happen.
They talked about a a family system, so you could have them as like, oh, it's a great Uncle Steve. Well, why is he an uncle? Well, so and so would really like other races a lot.
I wonder what a human Vanduul cross would look like. Anyway,
I don't want to know. Just stopping you right there. Next question.
now someone had asked, how much of Squadron 42 will affect the persistent universe? And from what they said, it sounds like the persistent universe, of course, happens after Squadron 42. We've known that for a while. But they said that, for example, the attack on Vega, which you see in the trailer on Vega 2, you may be able to go back to that place. Well, you will be going back to that place. And you'll see it in a slight reconstruction. It's still going to have damage from that attack, but you'll see maybe, I don't know, walkways and construction and new buildings going up. As Lightning pointed out to me earlier, that kind of indicates that there is a canonical ending to the game.
Which is very common in games that either share a similar world or are direct sequels. There is the canon ending where the developers say, this is how the story canonically would have ended, so therefore these are the events that would take place.
Yeah, and you kind of have to do that. There's no real way around that. And I've known some people that would be really frustrating for, but, that just is what it is.
Well, I mean, unless it's a single-player universe, and, you can't really do that.
There was a quick question about if there's going to be other types of currency. Now, initially, no. As time goes by, there might be. But first they need to get the economy established on the human side before worrying about alien races and other small group economies.
I imagine they're not going to touch on that until other systems with those races being the majority as opposed to the minority will even be a thing.
Well, I think in the future you're going to see that people trade in video cards because they're worth more than even the Bitcoin. And someone asked, how did ArcCorp completely turn into a city in 30 years? I think it was 40 years, but generally idea. They stated that it was kind of one of those quandaries that I think it's one of those things, honestly, from the way it was answered, like we didn't really think of that when we said it. I mean, when we said that, like, oh yeah, 40 years ago this was a bought planet, and then 40 years later it's Coruscant. So they were like, you could kind of tell, like they're like, oops, our timelines don't line up. But they're saying, well, imagine like it's all factory produced modular building. And as he said, the timeline is a little, quote-unquote, funky. The planet was pushed very aggressively by ArcCorp to maximize it for factories. So I guess a large part of it is factories and production facilities. So maybe what they did is they made a building that builds other buildings that build other buildings. And
that sounds like Factorio, the game.
Exactly. So they made a bunch of buildings that build buildings to build buildings, and then it kind of like it just went right there. It was like geometric, just massive scale of growth until they were all done, and then they went back and reconverted those buildings to do other things. I have no idea. But they said that the planet is privately owned, so there's no government regulations limiting expansion or environmental protections. So, yeah, that place is going to be a mess.
There's city terraforming, or rather planetary terraforming in Stellaris, where you can completely change a city into like a Coruscant city. I don't remember how long it takes. I could easily look it up, but it's in the thousands of days, like maybe, I don't know, 1,400 days.
Yeah.
You can do the math on that, but a long time, at least in a hyper advanced game. But they're video games, right? Numbers are abstract.
Yeah, and the text left up to the imagination. It could have been a massive effort to go ahead and have the stuff ready to go and just...
Yeah, they could have shipped it from off-world in all ease.
Yeah.
And just orbital dropped a city.
Who knows? Let your imagination go wild. Alright, and later this week, we start splitting up the extra casts with some episodes of the playlist. Starting with a guest instructional in DCS Flying the P-51 by The Face, where he explains the working of the plane, and we head out for a short skirmish. LD and I will also be heading back to our roots of my favorite flight experience, which was IL-2. I played IL-2 heavily in PvP competition from 2000 to like 2005, something in that area. I missed the game a lot, so we played a bit of it tonight. Some of that footage will be coming out later. It was more of getting used to the dynamics of the game, and we were playing it more on normal, but it was a lot of fun. And we got the IL-2 Battle of Stalingrad to kind of revisit all those nostalgic times I missed. And having been out of it for 14 years or so, I'm rusty as all heck, but you know what? I missed it. I really did. Also getting very close to DCS releasing its F-14. I have one of those for myself and for Lightning, so it should be some fun shows coming out with that, and we'll try to learn.
Danger Zone!
Oh, yeah. Now, one of the things that actually came out the other day, besides the manual which was released, they had spoken about, I guess, that right now if you fly in the front, there is a Jester AI that controls the Rio in the back. Well, apparently if you just want to play as the Rio, you get an AI called Iceman that flies the plane. So the AI runs both directions. And I'm really curious to see the quality of that, because once again, when we're talking about Star Citizen and multi-crew and you hire NPCs to sit in different positions, I would be very curious to see what kind of quality DCS was able to pull out in such a deep game and be able to compare that to maybe whatever Star Citizen does when it comes out. The gauntlet has been thrown down. Alright everyone, well that's about it for this week's BlastCast. As always, leave your comments and suggestions down below. And hope you enjoy the new shows as I start getting back into the things that got me into flight. And we will see you on the next one.
Where I explode.
Yeah, well I do too.